Good evening, everybody. My name is Shandelin Anderson, and I want to thank you for coming to our introduction to aeroponics and learning about growing in the tower garden this evening. And I've got a slide presentation that I'm going to share with you, and we'll start it here. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about my story and how I learned about the tower garden, and we're going to talk about the tower garden and how it works and where you can grow and what you can grow in the tower garden and the different uses of the tower garden and the benefits of growing with the tower garden and then the cost of the tower garden. So my story, I had a girlfriend that just kept poking me, sending me these little videos with this tower garden, and I had no idea what she was sending me. I've been a traditional gardener for more than 30 years, and here we've got pictures of my raised beds and some of the plants that I've grown, and we had just put in the garden. My husband and I had just replaced the gravel in between the beds, and we had planted the plants. And I keep getting these text messages from my girlfriend. And so finally she calls me and she says, Sean, you have got to look at this. I know that you will love this tower garden. So I took a look at the link and I was intrigued. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I did a deep dive and I was looking at everything I could possibly look at to see how this worked and what people were growing. And then I decided, okay, well, I think I want one of these. So then she got me on the phone with her friend and we walked through the tower garden, and I wanted a little bit of a discount. So I signed up as a distributor and I ordered it. Now, mind you, when you get your boxes for the tower garden, it is not like sneaking in a box of shoes. I had the UPS guy pull up and he had just unloaded all of these huge boxes on my front porch. And at the same time, my husband comes pulling up into the driveway. And then I thought, oh, busted. And so, of course, he comes in the house and he wants to know, what did you buy? And so I told him, I said, just wait, you'll see. And I set the tower garden up and he kept walking past looking and he's like, what is that? And I said, it's a tower garden. And he says, and what are you going to do with it? And I said, I'm going to grow plants in it. And he says, grow plants where? And I said, on the back deck. And then he looked at me like I had two heads, because he was just like, we just spent all that time and energy putting in the garden. And now you're telling me you're going to grow something else on the deck? And I said, yes. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a comparison. Some of the same plants that we planted in the garden, I am going to plant in this tower garden, and I'm going to see how they do. And so all summer long, I was comparing between the ground garden and the tower garden. And as I started this journey, I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just document this, because it'll be something fun. It's a new adventure. This is something very new to me. And so I started creating videos each week on the progress of the tower garden. And as a result, I had lots of people who would come back and ask me, well, how do I get one of these? Where do I buy one at? And so I started sending them my link. And about 4 months down the road, my husband says to me, you started a business and we didn't even talk about it. And I said, it was never my intention to start a business, but I was so excited about what was happening in this tower garden that I just kept posting. And as a result, people started paying attention and they wanted to know how they could grow their own produce as well. It's a lot different than all of the backbreaking work that you put into when you're doing raised beds. We had to build the beds, we had to clear the area and cut down trees. And there was all kinds of work that went into that, where the tower garden, you just open the boxes and you set it up and you can put it just about anywhere. So the tower garden, you grow vertically with the aeroponic growing system. You can grow your own produce without time or space commitment of traditional gardening. And you can grow a wide variety of produce, both inside and outside. And growing in the tower garden takes up less than 3 a 3-foot circumference. You can grow 30 times more, 3 times faster, and use 98% less water than a traditional gardening system. And that was news to my husband's ears. He liked that because we had to put an irrigation system out in the raised bed area. And I told him, I said, we don't need to do this. All of the water that we need is contained in the reservoir below. So let's take a look at how the tower garden works.
Tower Garden's state-of-the-art aeroponic vertical garden system uses both water and air to produce more colorful, better tasting, and incredibly nutritious fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Tower Garden has a 20-gallon reservoir at its base that stores the Tower Tonic nutrient solution. Developed by experts in plant and human nutrition, Tower Tonic Mineral Blend enables superior plant growth and better nutrition from your Tower Garden produce. The process begins once the seedlings have been placed in your tower garden. Here they will be nourished with Tower Tonic nutrient solution. Inside the reservoir is a small, low-wattage submersible pump. The pump pushes the nutrient solution up through the tower to the top. From there, the nutrient solution drips through the central tower using a special device that evenly cascades the solution over the exposed plant roots. On the journey down the tower, the nutrient solution feeds the roots and becomes highly oxygenated as it cascades gently down the reservoir. This process is continuous, providing fresh oxygen, water, and nutrients to the roots of the plants. This patented aeroponic process enables food crops to grow faster than they would in soil, so they can be harvested more often. And it makes Tower Garden the healthier, easier, smarter way to grow your produce.
So here are some pictures of my adventures in tower gardening. These are my inside tower gardens. And I started off with one tower garden on the back deck. And then I added another one because I could grow so much longer into the growing season outside with the tower garden than I could in my raised beds. And so I grew in my first tower garden until the end of November, but I didn't want to break it down to bring it inside yet because I still had cold weather crops growing on it. So I got another one, and then I got another one, and then I got another one. And so right now I'm sitting at 4 tower gardens. I'd like to get another one, and I may just before the end of the month. And so you can grow just about anything. I mean, I have everything from basil and thyme and cilantro and chives. I have all sorts of herbs growing inside. And then I have on one tower garden, I have a lot of the cool weather crops. I have Brussels sprouts and cabbage and broccoli and all sorts of lettuce. I have probably about 8 different types of lettuces growing right now. I have a tomato plant. Actually, I have 2 tomato plants. I have a red cherry tomato plant, and then I have an orange cherry tomato plant. I have pepper plants. This bok choy that's sitting on the top of the tower garden, that was actually in a microgreen mix, and it got that big in the tower garden. And I was just amazed at how big it was growing. And I thought, this is really cool. I also grow celery inside. One of the things that I like about growing in the tower garden is that I'm picking these vegetables at the peak of ripeness. And so they taste a lot more intense than the vegetables that you would get at the grocery store. And then here's my first tower garden. This first picture here was at about 3 weeks after I planted the plants. I was just shocked at how fast it was growing because I was running back and forth between my raised beds and looking at this tower garden. And some of these plants were larger than what I had planted out in the ground. And I grew all sorts of peppers and tomatoes. And then the picture of me holding the bouquet was like when I was just about ready to pull that tower garden down for the end of the season. But that was the cool weather crops that I had pulled off of some of the ports. And I just thought it was really cool. At the end of November, I was still able to grow produce. One of the things that I also like about the Terra Garden is I don't have to guess. There are minerals that you put in that reservoir at the bottom that are the perfect combination for growing perfect produce, really. Whereas in the ground garden, traditional gardening, I have no idea what's happening in the soil. And so I have to amend the soil sometimes. And then even amending it, it may not be enough. You have to rotate crops where you plant them each year so that they come back and they thrive the way they should. There's just a lot of unknowns planting in the dirt. And so it's kind of nice not having to worry about that with the Tower Garden. And I just put the plants in there and I just start growing. Now, there are two models that are available with the Tower Garden. You've got the Tower Garden Home and then the Tower Garden Flex. Now, the Tower Gardens that I currently own are the Flex models. I like them. I like the weight of them at the bottom. The difference between the two is the Tower Garden Flex, I like to say, is flexible. You can grow either inside or outside with that model. And it's got a 20-gallon reservoir at the bottom. And it allows you to add accessories like a support cage. You can put a dolly underneath it. You can add extensions to the top of it so that you can grow more plants. And the Tower Garden Flex, you can grow, it has 20 full-size ports. So you can grow larger, heavier type of plants in it that are vining because you have the support cage option to add to that Tower Garden. The Tower Garden Home, I like to say, is like the sleek little sexy looking curvy model. And it is really nice because it fits into nice little corners easily. So space, if space is an issue for you, it doesn't have to be. All you need is about 2.5 square feet in circumference for the Tower Garden Home. If you're going to grow in the home, you're probably going to grow lots of leafy greens and herbs. There is not a support cage for this model, so heavier vining plants are not necessarily recommended. It's not to say that you can't, but it's just a lot easier to maintain those types of plants in the Flex model. The reservoir at the bottom of the Tower Garden Home model holds 13 gallons of water. And what I like about the Flex is if I go out of town, like we go out of town every year at Christmas for 3 weeks, and I can fill that reservoir up and it doesn't have to be refilled near as often as if I had the 13 gallon. The other thing I like is sometimes where we live, it's really windy. And it's nice to know that if I've got Tower Gardens outside, that the wind is not going to be blowing them all over the place because the weight is pretty substantial at the base of that unit. So depending on what you want to grow and depending on, what your needs are, that's, how you would kind of decide between the two models. Now, we get a lot of questions about the lights. The lights for the Tower Garden, I would say, are a necessity if you're going to grow inside. It doesn't matter if you have a well-lit southern exposure window where you're getting lots of natural light coming in. You still have windows there, and your windows are rated with UV filters that are blocking some of the UV rays that really are beneficial to the plants. And there's never going to be enough light coming into the house for the plants to adequately thrive. One of the things about the lights, when I first started growing indoors, they are very bright. And my husband asked me, well, how much is it going to cost me in utilities if you're running these lights? Now, I run my lights 18 hours a day, and it's all on a timer. I don't do anything. I set everything up and it just automatically does everything by itself. And I would say at the end of the first month, I noticed about a $4 increase in the utility bill. And the lights are 125 watts total. So it's no different really than having a 100 and 200 watt light bulb in a fixture in your house, except for these are a little bit more efficient because they're LED lights. And it's a low heat light bulb. So you want to put it very close to the plant. which will help it result in a higher yield. And they're designed, they're full spectrum lights, so they're designed to produce lush, compact vegetative plant growth on your terror garden. The terror garden makes growing easy. It's easy to install, it's easy to maintain, it's less sensitive to climate because you can move it around if you need to. It grows 3 times faster than what you can plant in the soil. There's no digging, there's no weeding, there's no dirt. In fact, all you have is these really pretty white roots that are growing on the inside of the tower garden. And for those of you who actually grow in a tower garden, I bet you didn't know that if you were to pull one of those ports out and smell the roots, it smells like the plant that you planted. And so you could, you could always say, if you don't know what it is, you could always say, smell my roots, and you can smell the roots, and you'd actually be able to get a good idea of what it was that you planted if you didn't have your plants labeled. The other thing about the tower garden is it produces produce that's picked at the at the peak of ripeness. You have more nutrient dense vegetables growing all year round. And it truly is tower to table. I literally, when I grow inside, it's so nice because it's not sprayed with anything and there's no pesticides or anything that I'm putting on the plants. It's so clean. I pick it off the tower garden and I chop it up and I put it on the plate. I don't even bother to wash it. And even outside, the only reason why I wash it outside is because there are bugs outside. And I really don't want to be eating any bugs. But the nice thing is it tastes good. There is a definite difference in the taste of the produce that comes off the tower garden. And I like to say that it's better than organic. And the reason why I say that is I do plant organic produce in the tower garden, but it's being picked and it's not being transported. So when you think about buying organic in a grocery store, the organic produce still has to be picked long before it's ripe so that it gets to the store at a picture of what, it needs to be pretty so that you're going to buy it. And so they pick it before it's actually at the peak of ripeness, which means there are less nutrients in it. And then it's got to travel. And so when they put it in these trucks to travel, they'll cover the trucks with tarps. Well, those tarps are treated with a chemical to keep the produce from ripening. And so it's still getting some type of exposure to some type of chemical, even though it was grown organically. The transport is not always organic. Whereas in the tower garden, you have better than organic produce that you can have all year round. Now, there are many varieties of ways that you can grow and places that you can grow with the tower garden. You can grow on your back deck. You could grow multiple tower gardens and do a tower garden farm. Businesses are actually using the tower garden to supply their restaurants with produce. If you're in Chicago O'Hare Airport ever, they have a huge tower garden set up in there, and that tower garden supplies the majority of the restaurants in the airport with their fresh produce, which is really a cool thing. Schools are using them as well as teaching math and science in the elementary schools. And so there are lots of different ways that you can grow in any size, in any environment. And there are many benefits for children and family when it comes to growing in the tower garden. It provides a means for educating children about health and nutrition. It also has shown that there's increased academic performance with children. They form a real connection with nature, and it teaches them personal responsibilities. And it boosts confidence and pride. Now, I'm not a child, but I have confidence and pride in what I can grow in my tower gardens. There's nothing more satisfying to me than being able to pick and go and put it on the table and know that I provided something for my family. That's the best that it could possibly be. I also like the idea that I haven't had to go grocery shop. Well, I go grocery shopping every week, but I very rarely go into the produce section. I can't tell you the last time I bought lettuce or herbs from the grocery store. It's been close to 2 years since I've done that. And I continue to grow year around. So I'm just coming downstairs into my basement, picking what I need. And then if it's a big thing like squash or something like that, I may get that from the grocery store. But as much as I can grow in my house on my tower gardens, it really saves a lot coming out of our pocket. So it really does help. It's a way for families to bond. Kids enjoy learning, and studies have shown that kids who grow will eat more of what they grow. And so you don't need to have a green thumb. You don't have to have any growing experience at all. All you need to do is follow the directions, set up the tower garden, and then begin to grow. Now, the tower garden makes gardening really affordable. Now, when you look at what my raised beds looked like, that was thousands of dollars to set that up. And the tower garden is very affordable. It can pay for itself in as little as 6 months. And it's designed to work and last. Some people have had tower gardens for more than 10 years. And one of the things that I like is it's a food grade plastic. And that's the other thing that you need to be mindful of. If you're gardening in some other kind of container or whatever, you want to make sure that it's food safe. Because if it's not, you're introducing those chemicals and whatever is being absorbed from the plastic or the wood or those types of things into your body, because your plants are going to take on whatever is leaching from whatever it's planted in. But food becomes affordable as well as convenient. So what I did is I went, they did a study, and this study was done from a tower garden farm in Georgia. And it had been quite some time since it had been updated. So I went to the local grocery stores, and all I did was shop in organic produce to get pricing. And this gives you an idea of what the tower garden is capable of producing and what it costs to buy that in the grocery store. And so, like, for instance, for a bunch of Swiss chard, for a small bunch of Swiss chard in the grocery store, you're spending almost $3 for one bunch. Whereas you could get 26 bunches of Swiss chard by the end of the growing season, depending on, how you take care of your tower garden. But over a 6-month yield, you're looking at $1,180. And your initial investment is, for a tower garden is $670, and then the lights. So you really end up having an affordable way. And once you pay for it, it's yours. So the upkeep and the maintenance on the tower garden is minimal. And so you end up saving more and more over time. When you look at the tower garden costs, the tower garden home model is $55.83 a month. If you get the lights, it's $82.91 a month. That breaks down to $13.95 a week. And if you have the lights, $20.72 a week. Now, when I think about what I spend or what I blow in the week or what I spend on groceries in the week, I think that I could afford the $20.72 a week. I mean, when you break it down like that, if you were to even break it down on a daily cost, it equals out to be about a little bit less than a Starbucks cup of coffee. So it really is affordable. And the other thing is there's very little waste. I think about over the last couple of years since I've been growing in the tower gardens, how much produce I've thrown away. Very little. I mean, I'm picking it as we're eating it. And then even if I have to pick it because I have an overabundance, I can still pick it and put it in a Ziploc bag and squeeze all the air out of it. And that lettuce lasts at least 3 weeks before it starts to go bad. It's amazing. When I think about when I go to the grocery store, sometimes I will buy produce years back and I put it in the bins, the bottom bins in my refrigerator. And sometimes it would go bad before I even had an opportunity to use it. So I call those two bins in the bottom of my refrigerator. Well, not now, but they used to be a graveyard for vegetables to go to die. But now I hardly have any vegetables in there because I'm picking them fresh. But one of the things that I would encourage you to do is ask questions. If you are currently growing in a terror garden, great. If not, you can get with the person that invited you and they can go over the options that are available to you. Whether, what you want to grow will dictate which model that you get. And they'd be happy to get you growing in a terror garden. And I want to thank you all for joining me, and we'll stop the recording now and